Think you're safe online? Think again. In this video, we expose the hidden dangers of internet crimes that could be lurking behind innocent conversations. From deceptive profiles to legal pitfalls involving age and consent, learn how easily you could be drawn into criminal activity without ever knowing it. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and stay out of trouble. Protect yourself from the unseen threats of the digital age. Watch now to learn how.
Topic 1. Internet crimes.
The age of the internet has brought with it unique challenges and problems that our clients face on a daily basis. Some of the biggest problems areas that we see that are in dispute on a daily basis are cases involving issues of either age or consent.
I agree with that, Roland. I think primarily when we're discussing legal issues related to the age of the person that one of our clients is interacting with online, I think it goes without saying that people need to use extreme caution when they're interacting with people online who they do not know and who represent to them that they're adults, but may very well turn out to be children who are being deceitful and lie about it.
Yeah. I mean, a great example was when several clients I've represented were on a website called seekingarrangements.com. Everybody has to be 18 that's on there. However, when somebody's placing an ad, they can self-certify that they're 18. So you really don't know who you're dealing with. I had one client that was conversing with a girl online. She turned out to be 13. However, she was sending pictures, messages, nude photos to scores of men. Every one of those men who were receiving those images were committing a crime, unbeknownst to them. Now, our client actually wound up meeting with this person in person, thought she was 18, found out after the fact that she was under 18. But that poses an especially big problem for our clients.
In particular, when dealing with persons under the age of 14, California imposes something known as strict liability, which means that even if you were misled, even if you genuinely believed that the person was older, if you have sexual relations with a person who is under the age of 14, you are held strictly liable for the crime, regardless of your individual knowledge or your criminal intent. And so for that reason, Roland, I agree. I don't think people can trust when websites certify someone's age. I think people need to go a step further. I think people need to pay very careful attention to representations that are made to them, and they can't just hear what they want to hear and then do what they want to do. I think it really places the burden on the adult who is interacting with a person representing themselves as an adult who perhaps is a little bit more useful. So that if you are a 47-year-old man and you think you're interacting with an 18-year-old or 19-year-old woman, you need to go the extra step. And you need to truly make sure to check the ID. Be polite about it. Be a gentleman about it. You don't have to be a jerk. But you need to protect yourself and make sure that you don't end up in a situation where you heard what you wanted to hear, did what you set out to do, and now you're facing some very serious legal accusations for having inadvertently committed a crime involving a minor, a sexual crime.
That's correct. Checking the age, making sure of the age of the person. You just don't know who's behind the screen. There's somebody out there. They could be a variety of people you need to check. Another area where we had problems with age that we've come across is people that are conversing over the internet in fantasy situations.
Oh, I agree. In fact, Roland, this was, and I'm glad you brought this up because, and maybe this betrays our old age a little bit, but we actually had a case involving somebody who was participating in fantasy discussions on the forum involving DDLG. Now, you and I had no idea before we got this case what it meant until a young former legal assistant in our office clued us in, and it turned out that DDLG stands for Daddy Dom Little Girl, and it turned out to be an explanation and a potential defense for the client. But what we learned is that there are actually adults out there, for example, who fantasize in a sexual way about being daddy's little girl or mommy's little boy. And quite often it goes to extremes and discussions about sexual activities that happen when people are very young. And so if you're an adult having conversations that revolve around fantasies involving younger people or pretending to be younger people, You have to be very, very clear in establishing boundaries between where fantasy ends and reality begins. So you don't end up in a situation where you're thinking you're sending text messages or sending sexual messages or sending nude photographs to a person who's role playing being 16 years old or 15 years old, and turns out, in fact, to be 15 or 16 years old, sending you back naked photographs of themselves that have just gotten you convicted of possessing or distributing child pornography or sending obscene or lewd matter to a minor, because those are serious accusations in California. They could send you to jail or prison and require sexual offender registration for a very long time, sometimes even for life.
And even in these fantasy situations where somebody's an adult, but they're pretending to be a kid, but the police think that you thought they were a kid, you could be prosecuted in that case as well.
Moreover, Roland, you could have a police officer pretending to be a kid. In fact, that's a standard practice. You could have a police officer engaging in a large sex offender sting operation, and we had one here in Monterey County, where an officer goes online, posts an ad pretending to be a 15-year-old girl, and in one case in particular, we had an officer pretending to be a Hispanic girl, which brings into it all kinds of other ethical and legal issues. But that cop went online, stole a photograph of a young girl from her Facebook account, built an entire false identity around it, placed an ad online in the casual encounter sections of Craigslist, and used it as bait for sex offenders. And so it created a situation where he pretended to be a kid, luring people into an adults-only section of the website, but then dropping hints in the middle of this erotic fiction that he may be 14 or 15, that he can't drive, that he needs mom to check his homework, that he needs somebody to come pick him up. And so all of these people think they're interacting with an adult at first, then they get some messages in the middle that one thinks would raise a suspicion that they're dealing with a kid, but they're not sure. And then when they showed up to meet with the person they were interacting with, they end up meeting a police officer and they get arrested. And even in the situation where you have zero intent to meet up, but you are acting like you want to meet up, and you're talking to this juvenile who's really an adult, but the officers think you're talking to a juvenile, you can be convicted of an attempt to lure a kid, where you might think it's a fantasy. You might think you're online playing out these fantasies, and there's hundreds of them that people engage in, and lots of these fantasies can get you in trouble.